Hey everyone, this is Swordsman9 here. Welcome back to me. I gotta be honest, I was trying to think of what to do, and I did want to upload more gameplay footage of my playthroughs. There was Blood of the Werewolf that I was still trying to finish, but I thought there was something I kind of had to get off my chest a bit. You probably heard of it before if you listen to my podcast on Anchor, but just in case you haven't, there is something that I wanted to talk about, which was my personal experience with my first job. And, well, let's just say it was not the best. So, I'm going to tell you about it. Ready? Good. Make sure you have a few minutes to spare and maybe get a snack or two because this is going to be a bit of a slog. So, over 2 months ago, I ended up getting a call from a call center called Alorica. And I was really excited because I was struggling to find a job ever since college and even before that. And that kind of thing really got me really excited because, it's the first job, a chance to get a paycheck. And this was pretty self-explanatory. You worked in a call center, sort of like a technical support, work at home, get a decent wage, maybe some bonus, depending on how you do. And something like that made sense to me. On paper, at least. In the future, however, I don't think working at a call center will be something I want to do again. And this is why. So, first off, for those of you who don't know, Alorica is kind of like a sort of a subcontractor that has people that work in customer services with other companies. And the one I ended up going to was something called Costco Concierge, which is a fancy way of saying we're here to help people who bought stuff from Costco. Now, that doesn't sound too hard. You provide technical support with them. You tell them how to fix, say, their TV, why it won't turn on. Maybe you'll get one that has talk about a computer or even their phone. I even once got a call from an Indian man who was having trouble with his stovetop. I'm not exactly the best person to talk about with that, by the way. But anyways, we'll get to that later. So, starting off in Alorica, I was in an orientation. The first to get to know everyone else who was signing up with this job. Really seemed like it was going to be a pretty good way to connect with people. At least, that's what I thought. The reality was that it was very chaotic. There was no sort of management there. We spent maybe a good 2-3 hours just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, waiting for someone, anyone, to talk about what we would do. And we even asked when we can start bringing computers home to work at home. One of them actually asked me, how do you plan to work here if you didn't bring your computer? No one told me to bring a computer. Because when I was waiting, right after I gave them my information, they asked if I brought a personal computer to work at home. I said no. Yet they never told me that. All I had to do was take a drug test the first time I went in. So that was one thing. Another thing was it took a while to get set up because they didn't even plan that far ahead to actually give people their computers. It was more or less, it took pretty much a good week before some of us were even allowed to take a computer to home. And of course, we had to be wired because they wouldn't give us any sort of access to their own Wi-Fi or use some sort of modem. I actually had to spend $65 on my own router just so that I could work at home. On the plus side, I can actually use it to plug into my laptop now. And it's slightly faster, but that's about it. Anyways, after we finally got set up, we went in a training after about 2 days of talking. Training was interesting. First of all, for some of us who were working at home, we had to go on a video chat, which sounded cool. And one of the supervisors there, let's call him M, because I don't want to drop a name there. M seemed like a pretty nice guy. He was very chill, laid back, had a sort of a gentle charm to him, and I really liked him. But, you know, he was trying to teach us things that were very technical, and pretty soon later on we were told that we had to sort of implant it into our brains on the troubleshooting steps, like how to manually set up a remote or power cycle a TV, where to go to when software won't work on a computer. We crammed so much information in a week, 2 weeks even, because after that we went on to computers, laptops, cameras, even household appliances. And it was a disaster too. It was very slow, and not everyone was guaranteed pretty stable internet connection because of where they worked. We maybe had a couple of people drop out midway through it because either they were tired of it or they just decided to move on. It was probably a different story for those on site. I can't really speak for everyone who signed up for this job, but from my personal experience, it was definitely not the best. It really felt like we were back in school. After we got said information, we had to take tests, and, you know, some of us didn't even have notes. In fact, I can even tell you that the folders they give us that had some of the information we need, they were incomplete. Meaning some people were missing very important papers that they needed to learn the class. How do you not even prepare the people who are about to work there and not even make sure that everyone has what they need, especially on the first day? They didn't even give us our computers until maybe a week after. I don't want to sound like an ungrateful person, and I'm sure due to COVID it wasn't easy, but from my experience it was pathetic. Anyways, after we got some of the training done, we started to go into nesting, which was basically a fancy word of saying they were going to let us take calls and they were going to supervise. This is where things started taking a turn, because every call was not always a good one. There were actually a few I can think of that were pretty good. There was this one old man who had a bit of a Jewish accent from Michigan. He was probably one of the sweetest guys I ever talked to, and I really hope he got some help with his TV. But then there were others that were sort of, in a lack of better words, a complete shit show. I apologize for cursing. As to what I mean by that, I can give you 3 calls that I did that were probably the worst calls ever. One was a couple who were trying to return a TV. They had confirmation, and they were in warranty, but they wanted a different model TV, not the one that they purchased. So I was trying to get information from them, and it just went so sideways to a tangent because I was getting confused, mostly due to their wording. And the wife just blasted out at me like, no, 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 we had all the information here. We have the confirmation. The return has been done. We just need to know about this. Why aren't you paying attention? I sat there for a good 3 minutes on hold, just letting her sort of vent before I was finally able to put them to different people. The next one was an old lady who was trying to get her TV fixed or replaced, but she didn't like the warranty options. She either had to take a refurbished model that was from Amazon and not even from Costco, or have the people work in there on her TV outside, which I guess she lived in a very small house, but she didn't even clarify on why she didn't want that to happen. It was mostly because she said it was raining outside and she didn't want the chance of it getting water damaged. But I don't even know if it was going to be raining constantly by the time the people got there. So I tried to tell her that there was nothing we can do. She couldn't move on to the other warranty with Costco because she still had a good 77 days on it. She was getting upset with me, said that she didn't like that idea. I kept trying to explain to her that there was nothing I could do. So she asked me to put her to my supervisor. Now I know some of you there are probably thinking, that's it? That's nothing. And yeah, now that I think about it, I probably got off easy. But for someone who was just starting out, it was a bit of a detriment. Kind of put me to tears. And then the last one was with an old guy who was, he was trying to get his headset paired up with, no, and that wasn't it. No, what was it? No, it was another old guy. He was struggling with his TV. Said that he didn't like how the TV looked when it was displaying 4K, and all the other shows were not looking so good. I tried to tell him that you really couldn't change it on 4K TVs, and he sort of just was keep on going to reach around like, no, I want to be able to manually change the aspect and resolution. How do I do that? I tried to explain to him that certain channels display in 4K and that a lot of it is pretty much automatic. He sighed and didn't even give me a moment to try to reassure him. He just hung up on me. Didn't even give me a chance to say thank you for waiting or for his patience. There's a dozen more calls that I took that were not very good, but I'm just going to leave it on 3 because otherwise this is going to take forever. My experience with Alorica was horrible. There was no management at all. And what's even worse is that it was almost a sign of being a drone. They actually thought for people to stick to a script, like you had to, otherwise you get docked or warned because of their scoring. So every time you had to memorize, thank you for calling Costco Concierge Services, this is blah, 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 how may I help you? And then there were things like where we had to memorize like certain phrases like, oh, I'm sorry that this happened to you. Oh no, I will be able to help you the best I can. Now, to better assure you, can I get information on this? Well, would you like any more further assistance? Thank you for calling Costco Concierge Services. You have a lovely day. Like, I can't even begin to imagine how people are duped to thinking that this is the best place to work at, because it's not. There really is no sense of direction. You're sort of left on your own after you complete training. And they claim that they give you bonuses, but I actually learned later that it was more of a favoritism thing. Like, you had to be an ace agent in order to get qualified for certain things, like an extra $100 in your paycheck. You had to make sure that you were doing everything perfectly. And I mean perfectly. Hitting all the keywords, all the phrases, pretty much being a kiss ass is the best way I can say it. So I don't want to insult anyone who works at a place like that, but would I recommend starting out a job at a call center called Alorica? No. And I applaud anyone who was able to stick with that for more than a year, because I ended up quitting in just a month. And I have no regrets of doing that, because that was an emotional and draining experience for me. Which is why I branched out to YouTube again, because there's no way I could do a job like that anymore, especially with having to deal with people who feel privileged. So take that for what you will. Leave a comment if you have any sort of similar experiences, like working at a job that dealt with talking with people and having to help them. And if you do work at a call center, you should probably leave. It sucks. It's horrible. Yeah. So that's all I had to say right now. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have any suggestions on what else you would like to hear from me, leave a comment below. And also check out my DeviantArt, my Patreon, Ko-Fi. There's a lot of cool content there. There's like over 15,000 images in DeviantArt alone. You won't regret it. So, thanks everyone so much for listening, and as always, respect the classics.